Welcome to the Irish Pagan School podcast. Your hosts are authors and co-founders of the Irish Pagan School here in County Waterford, Ireland, Laura O'Brien and Jon O'Sullivan. Fáilte.
Is it possible to be magically shapeshifted against your will in Ireland? Well, Dagdi Ivagus Fáilte. Hi, hello, and welcome to Jon O'Sullivan from the Irish Pagan School. And I am exploring some of the weirder or more wonderful stories of our mythology, the more magical tales concerning monsters or creatures. And I've come across one which deals with shapeshifting, but it is shapeshifting not of one's own free will. It's not shapeshifting, and there are many, many examples of shapeshifting throughout our mythology. People turning into various shapes throughout the entire Ulster cycle. In fact, 50 women from Aon Macha disappear one night, and they come back as flights of birds, which are only recognized in part and then chased by the Cumhaill and his knights, his warriors. But there's another story which is even sadder, because in many of the shape-shifting tales, most times, more often, there's some otherworld lesson to be learned, and then the people who are shape-shifted are returned. Not so in the case of Sadhbh. Sadhbh is one of the sadder stories about shape-shifting, and it comes from the later Fenian Cycle. So the tale of Sadhbh goes that she was a very beautiful young woman, and she's either the daughter of Bov Jarroch, King of Munster, or of Conn of the 100 Battles. So it's either, again, a mythical origin or a slightly more historical origin. So the story is that she was a beautiful young woman who was approached without her kind of interest by someone referred to as An Fear Doirche, or the Dark Man. And so, having refused the interest of the Dark Man, she was cursed and turned into a deer. And so she was kept by An Fear Doirche as a deer, until one day the servant of the Fear Doirche took pity on the deer and told her that if you can escape, if you can make it through across Ireland to the seat of the Fenian Castle, you'll be safe there because the Fear Doirche's power can't enter that castle. And so Sadhbh makes her escape. And she travels through the forest. She's running the entire time, trying to escape, trying to find what's believed to be Alwyn. Alwyn is the home of Fionn, leader of the Fianna. And as she's approaching that, she's in the woods and she is found by a pair of hunting dogs. And these are the very famous hunting dogs of Fionn, known as Bran and Sceolan. Sceolan and Bran normally would be 100% take down a deer because that's what they're trained to do as deer hounds. And as the story goes, though, they recognize something in Sadhbh that they know of themselves because their mother had also been a woman who was transformed into a dog by the magics of an evil person. And so what happened with her was she was pregnant at the time and she gave birth to her twins who came out as dogs. Unfortunately, the magic was undone on her, so she returned to her human form, but her two twin children, Bran and Sceolan, remained as dogs. And they were said to be in the lore the cousins of Fionn himself, which is why he has such a strong connection with those two hounds. So some part of Bran and Sceolan recognise the fact that this isn't just a normal deer. This is someone who has been transformed. And so Fionn comes across a very strange sight, which is two deer hounds coddling and caring for or licking a deer without attacking it or taking it down. And of course, he's very confused and he's calling for them to hunt, but they completely ignore him. And instead, the two hounds walk this deer to Almond. They walk the deer home. And when she steps across the threshold into Fionn's home, the magic of An Fear Doirche, the Dark Man, is undone and she turns back into a beautiful young woman. It says in the tales that Fionn falls completely head over heels for her. So much so he gives up hunting, he gives up carousing, he gives up war raiding and everything else, taking pleasure only in her company. Not long afterwards, she, in the fullness of time, becomes his partner, his wedded wife, and they conceive a child. She becomes pregnant. Now, there is still conflict at this time, and the story goes that Fionn is called away, despite his intentions not to leave. He is called away to battle a Viking invasion, and while he is gone, tragedy strikes for Sadhbh. And so Sadhbh waiting for Fionn to come home, waiting desperately for the return of her love, one day looks over the barricades and she sees outside Fionn with Bran and Sceolan. And she runs downstairs and, not even thinking, she runs straight out of the castle to greet the person she loves. Unfortunately, it is a trick by doirche, the Dark Man, and he lets fall the fake image of Fionn and the dogs until Sadhbh stands before him, and taking up a hazel stick, he strikes her on the forehead and turns her back into a deer. It says Fionn is completely distraught when he returns and finds Sadhbh is missing, and straight away he leaves on a hunt. He leaves to try and find her. He does not return home. He will not return home until he finds Sadhbh. He spends 7 long years searching everywhere, all around Ireland, up and down, every place, every dark place, dangerous place, looking for Sadhbh, but he can't find her. After 7 years, he comes across a very strange sight, and it is a boy, a small boy living wild in Ireland, in the wildernesses, in the dark and dangerous places, living and surviving on its own. And in looking at the child, he recognizes the features of not only Sadhbh, but also of himself. And that's how he finds and claims his young son, who he calls Oisín, which means fawn or little deer. So the story is quite a sad one. It's one of the saddest ones that I've come across. As I said, the story of Sadhbh, we don't know what happened to Sadhbh. Obviously, she gave birth to Oisín. Oisín was not born as a deer, he was born as a child. He was then found and raised. Oisín himself becomes one of the greatest heroes of the Fenian Cycle. In fact, it's also known as the Oisínic Cycle, named after Oisín. It's said that he is the great poet who relayed all of these stories. And this is the same Oisín who rides the horses into Tir na nÓg and goes to the land of the ever young, only to return. But maybe more on that another time. So, yes, the answer, not hard to say. It is possible to be turned and shapeshifted without your consent, according to Ireland's mythology and lore. So, hopefully you'll find this interesting. As I said, I'm exploring all of these weird, magical, monstrous creatures and circumstances. In this, the monster isn't actually the beasts of the world, it is the doirche, the Dark Man, and their evil magics. So, with that, I would invite you to pick up more information from the Irish Pagan School. You go to irishpagan.school/free. We have a whole lot of free resources. Make sure you follow along, like and subscribe here to pick up on the information that we have. And until next time, look after yourself. Take care. Agus slán. Goodbye.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please leave us a positive review in your podcast listener. Then head over to irishpaganschool.com and enroll in one of our free or paid courses. Slán go fóill, and we will see you next time.